This is Bill McMinn from Eagleville Bible Church, and this is the Way to Go podcast, where we talk about faith, family, and daily life, putting the Bible into practical, everyday terms. Welcome to the Way to Go podcast. Bill McMinn, along with me, is Bradley Brobst, and we're talking today actually about fight nice, how to have an argument with your spouse. And people talk about arguing, and sometimes you'll hear a couple say, "Oh, we never argue. We never had an argument." And I always feel like when I hear stuff like that, I think somebody's way quiet. Because there's almost no way that two humans are that in sync that they're never going to have some disagreement, or you woke up on the wrong side of the bed. So I never like to argue. To me,
or it's coming. Somebody's going to break.
Right, exactly. I don't mind. My attitude is like, yeah, sometimes my wife and I will squabble about something or bicker or have an argument. I never mind as long as it's going somewhere. At the end of it, if you've resolved something, then I don't mind going through the pain of it to get to a better place.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you've got that, but I believe also, on the other hand, you got to be willing to listen and to hear and not take everything so personally. And one of the things, I think that's a hard thing when you're having an argument, is you feel like they're saying you're not good enough or you're not worthy, and that's hard too. Yeah,
it's a constant. You always want to make sure that you're coming off well with your spouse.
Right.
So it's about your tone. It's about how you present it as well.
Well, speak the truth in love. I mean, that's where we'll start. Like, if I'm going to say, hey, how to fight nice, I would say just the way you say it is everything. My wife has said that so many times. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. If I've heard one phrase repeatedly in our marriage, it's that. I don't think I've heard it as much lately, so that's good, because you're always trying to be better as a husband. I'm always trying to grow. But it says in Ephesians 4:15, instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. So speak the truth in love. I think that's where you would start. You got to tell them the truth. There's no point in not telling the truth, right? I mean, you've got to, whatever's bugging you or whatever's on your heart, I mean, you need to say that, right?
And sometimes it's not that you're not, the truth, a lot of people think, oh, you got to love me and accept me, but a lot of times it's about, I am loving you by telling you the truth.
Right.
That I do care about you. This is why I'm telling you, because I see the path that you're going down, or whatever the disagreement may be.
Right. And I think there's it depends on what you're talking about. Like, some things are just natural differences. Somebody's more punctual, somebody's not as punctual, somebody's more organized, the other person's not as organized. You kind of got to feed off each other's strengths. So if I'm stronger in an area, then my wife should be kind of tucking in with me a little bit and allowing me to be strong in that area. And that'll help her to overcome a weakness. And I should be doing the same with her. And it's just a difference. Like, she's so good at certain things that I'm not. Like, she can actually see how something goes together way faster than I can. So if there's any type of mechanical puzzles, putting a doorknob in a door, she just sees it. She just has that engineering type of thinking, engineering kind of mind. It's always amazed me, actually. I'd sit out there and fiddle around with windshield wipers for 30 minutes. She'd have them on in 30 seconds, because she could just look at it and say, they go like this.
That's embarrassing.
It is. But in some ways, I feel like, but it's okay. Yeah. No, because it is. Because some of the things, like, I'm super strong on, and some of the things she's super strong on, that's okay. That's why we're a team, and we're together.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that we got from our marriage counseling, premarital counseling, is our differences are actually good for each other.
Right.
They're going to help. Where Courtney's more quiet, but she's a better planner than I am.
Right.
She's writes everything on the calendar, where she keeps me in line, and where I'm more outspoken, and when we're out, I help interact with her and other people to have no problem being an extrovert.
So you could eliminate some arguments if you just realize being different's okay. I always tell the people when I'm doing the premarital counseling, I'm not excusing sin. Like, we're not saying, hey, he's just different. He lies to me. He's just different. He cheats on me. No, we're not. Or, screams and yells at me and cusses at me. We're not talking about sin. We're talking about true differences that aren't right or wrong. It's just kind of who we are. So I don't want to get caught up in that too much. But on the other hand, if you're frustrated, you got to be able to communicate that. And maybe that's where some of the arguments come out. It's just we're kind of frustrated about something that we're seeing, or patterns that are either tripping us up, annoying us, whatever the case may be. I think just communicating those in a loving way.
Yeah. Biggest thing too is when you get into an argument is the point of the argument, like you were talking about, because so many times we just want to win the conversation. We just want to win the argument, prove someone wrong, and that should not be our intent.
Right. No, I think you have to be humble enough to realize you're not always right.
Yes.
And that's the way my wife and I went through. It was a hard project. We were doing our patio, and it was so funny because and I've said it from the pulpit too, but on those days we didn't want to shoot ourselves. We just wanted to shoot each other. So, and we laugh at it. We say it tongue in cheek, but those were times where I had to realize my wife is way more particular than I am. As far as the pieces fitting together, I did more of that than anybody. When it came to leveling it and making sure everything this way to that way was right and everything was pitched this way, I mean, just exactly right, every stone, that was all her. And so I would just have to go with her lead on that kind of stuff. And then she would tell me to take some things apart if she didn't like it, which is hard because I spent 2 hours on it. I don't like it, so then I'm starting all over again. In a project you want to get done. So, but that's where you just have to have the patience of realizing, yeah, we're two different people working on this project, and some of the things that are important to her are not important to me. However, I gave her a tremendous amount of credit for the way it turned out because I said it's your, and I've complimented her so many times that we've been done. It's like, it's your precision that really helped it to make it look as nice as it did. Like, she is just that, has that vision for it. You know, like I said, the pieces going together, more me. The balance of it, that was more her. And so both of us worked hard on it together. And we worked together. We did well together. And, you know, and we did get it done. And we're always doing something together. Like, I think for her and I, we want to be together. We like doing things together. We like spending time, whether that's hiking or whatever, but still you're going to clash at times just by virtue of you just have different ideas about something.
And that's where if you get angry about something, you want to make sure, as Ephesians 4:26 says, in your anger, do not sin.
Right.
We're going to get angry about something. There's going to be times that we're angry or your spouse is angry, but do not sin.
Right.
Do not sin in that.
Right. No, 100%. We want to make sure that we're not getting carried away and saying things, and you're going to get frustrated as soon as you have a block goal. You know, if you have a goal and you want to get the kids out the door at a certain time and everyone, I'm legendary for vacations and leaving and getting aggravated because no one's ready. And everyone knows, like, when dad says like 5:30 in the morning, he's not joking, or 6 or 4 or whatever time it was I thought we should be leaving. Like, I really want to be gone. And so then it would just always be that stall, you know, constantly. So I think just patience, realizing, hey, it's no big deal, just not letting little things get to you, I think is part of it too.
Yourself.
Yeah, quick to listen, I think, is a huge one too, because it says in James 1:19 that, dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the right. And this is verse 20 now. Human anger doesn't produce the righteousness God requires. So I like that. Just, you got to be quick to listen. And sometimes it's very frustrating as a spouse or a friend or anyone, if you're trying to, you finally come to that point where, okay, I'm going to say something. And then you get shot down right out the gate. What are the chances you're going to be saying anything anytime soon? Right? Because you're not even giving this person. And two, a lot of times when people come and say, like your spouse, especially, our wives, if they say something to us on a level, and it comes across like a level 3 in volume, but in their inside, they're level 8 or 9, but they're trying to temper it. And so we're not like catching it, you know what I'm saying? That because they've lowered, like they say it so calmly, we almost think it's no big deal. Where I always tell guys, turn up the volume when she's speaking. Make it seem more than how it's coming across, because there's a really good chance that she's holding a lot back. And just the fact that she's saying anything at all, you better jack that up and realize, hey, this something's really bothering her. I need to take it seriously. Because sometimes guys get in trouble. It's not that their wives didn't tell them 100 times, 1,000 times. They never listen. So,
and a lot of times us guys, we're quick to speak, slow to listen. And if we're that way, we have that mindset when we're talking and it starts to get disputed, there's a 90% chance that if you are not listening to what they're going to say, they're not going to listen back to you. You have to act. You have to show them that you care, that you are listening, that you want to know their point, and they're more willing to know your point, and then you guys can collaborate and come to a better conclusion on what the solution is.
I just read an article yesterday about it in anticipation of doing this podcast, and they were saying that one of the great ways to avoid fighting, really, and getting those heated kind of arguments is just making sure before you say anything, before you're making your points, that you're finding out, why does this mean so much to you? Like, why are you upset? Instead of getting defensive, oh, you just always picking me up, nothing's ever good. You know, it's like, well, why don't you start asking some questions and try to understand what's on your spouse's heart, your significant other, your friends, whatever it is, what's on their heart? Why do they feel the way that they do, and try to understand it more? And they were making an illustration of somebody's upset. Oh, you know, all of a sudden they're coming unglued because you spent, you know, $20 on something and they didn't think you should. And then you start, well, why do you feel this way? And then next thing you know, you find out that, well, when I was younger, we never had enough. Or so they just get more nervous about it. And it has to do with something that's totally unrelated to you spending that $20. It's just brewing. Right. And just, well, why do you feel that way? You know, let's talk about it. So he said, don't take half answers, half answers. Don't just keep going after it. If they say, well, that's just the way I am, I've always been this way, just say, well, no, I want to understand it. You know, obviously you have strong feelings about this. You know, I'd like to understand why you feel that way. And a lot of times he said the person you're talking to doesn't necessarily understand why they feel that way. Yeah. Like, they've got to think about it too. He said a lot of times we don't really like to think about our feelings. We don't like to think about why we feel so strongly about something. You know, where's it really rooted? And he says it's a healthy thing for us to really think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and just knowing what that whole reason behind it is will help figure out what's the problem that you're trying to deal with.
Oh, that was a great point. It's not something I often think about, to be honest with you. You know, just coming
a lot of
through
times
the empathy.
You're on that point of, no, I need to get my point across, and that's not always the right way to be doing it.
I think I don't know how it is for you all out there, and maybe it's this way for the wives too. I'm not a big fan of arguing. Like, it's not, I'm good at it. I mean, I would say I'm great at it. You know, why? I grew up with all brothers.
Bragging about arguing.
Listen, watch this. I grew up with brothers. You know what I'm saying? I grew up with brothers. We were arguing all the time. Like, I always thought, like, all of us were like world-class arguers, man. We knew how to argue our point. We grew up doing it, but it's not something I really, I don't prefer to argue about things. I'd rather just talk about it and figure it out, because I'm very easy rolling. So I don't feel like I have to win.
Yeah. And
I just, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I guess I don't think in those terms. You know, I like to get along. I want my wife happy. I want my family happy. So I'm not looking to bulldoze anyone. I'm looking actually to get along. So I do want to understand it.
Yeah. And that's exactly, we have to see our motives, because if we're looking at attacking that person because they said some harsh word towards you, and you'll turn to attacking them back or belittling them or whatever, because of how you're feeling. You're going off your emotions and not what.
Oh, absolutely.
You should be more focused on the topic at hand.
Right. Well, that's why
your spouse is not the enemy, or whoever you're arguing with.
I would say this: address the problem. Don't attack the person. Always. You don't want to be attacking the person, because if you and I are talking and I just come in and say, you know what, that was stupid, or I come in and say something that's going to put you on the defensive. You're going to be on the defensive. If you're a spouse and you're coming to your spouse, you should just say, hey, when you talk to me like this, it makes me feel like this. And you're going to say, well, I don't want you feeling like that. Then you can't even argue with it. Like, say, you can't even argue with a person when they say, I feel like this when you do this. You're not attacking them. You're talking about you. So there's nothing for them to argue about at all. And then typically they're way more sympathetic towards it, because you're not saying, you're just like your dad. You're just like your mom. You always do this. You never do this. You just care about yourself. You know, and you're throwing whatever term out there, because a lot of times when we're mad, we just want to go scorched earth. So you get mad and you're like, oh, I know all their buttons. I'm just going to push them right in order to get the biggest explosion out of them I can, because you made me mad, I'm going to make you mad, right? So it's unwise. It's very unwise, I would say, because it says in the Bible, we're not supposed to be sinning in our anger, and our anger is not working the righteousness of God. Ephesians 4:29 says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. I love it. We should never be calling each other names. Mm-hmm. Here's another thing you shouldn't say. Do not say, I'm going to divorce you. Mm-hmm. Don't say it. I'll say any young couple I ever do premarital counseling with, you never say it. Not only do you not say it, don't even think it. Mm-hmm. This is not an option. We're not going to be throwing those terms around, because what happens to people is they'll say that to their spouse, their significant other, they bolt. Then they're coming to me like, well, they left and this and that. And it's like, well, I said I wanted a divorce. I'm like, well, why'd you say that? Mm-hmm. I didn't mean it. Then you shouldn't have said it.
Your words have meaning and have weight.
You shouldn't have made them feel insecure like that. You should have made them feel like you're not going to be there, that you're going to bolt. One guy, he would say it every day. He'd say it to his wife. How many years did you do that? 15, something like that. Finally, she bolts, and he's like, well, I didn't mean it. You shouldn't have said it. Mm-hmm. But what idea are you putting in this person's head? Exactly. You're not there. As soon as the kids are growing, you're out the door, so on and so forth. So I think that's a major problem too.
Yeah, and then we need to be complimenting them, making sure that we're, like, one thing that I always try to do, because a lot of times we get so caught up and busy with our life, is to make sure that we're complimenting whenever, even our children, whenever they bring you something, oh, good job, I like this, right. And actually not just say good job, but actually get into that, whatever they actually did, or even simple things as thank you for the food, thank you for making dinner. And even though I hope it never lose meaning because of saying it so much, but you always want to be complimenting her.
You can't say it too much.
Yeah.
you just
well, sometimes
can't.
I just feel like it's like
you can't.
I say
you
it.
Can't. Honestly, it's almost like you just can't tell someone too many times you love them. You can't
definitely on that.
Tell someone compliment. When I first got married, I made a decision right away. Like, no one is ever going to out-compliment me to my wife. Mm-hmm. My wife is never going to get drawn towards someone else because they're constantly complimenting her, telling her what a great gal she is, and she hears nothing from me. Mm-hmm. She's going to hear more from me, guaranteed, than she's ever going to hear from anyone else, because I will compliment. I will tell you, I think you look nice. I will say sweet things. Like, it's just... I believe in it. You know what I'm saying? And it kind of tends to be who I am. Not saying I can't say negative things too, but I tend to be more of a positive, person when it comes down. My biggest bugaboo is tone of voice at times. If I just get a little frustrated or get a little aggravated, it's not even, sometimes you don't even really mean anything. You're not even really that upset, but you say in a way that comes across condescending, and it just doesn't come across well. And then you're spending a lot of time. It was stupid on my part, to be honest, because then you're spending time making up for that or explaining yourself. And really, all you got to do is be nice. Yeah. So it's not, they don't mind what you said. They do mind how you said it.
Yeah. A lot of that's with the tone of, because I would get defensive, especially before knowing Christ. If they come at me with something, I would get defensive, raise your voice, or pick out other things that shouldn't have been brought up just because I'm getting defensive. I'm putting my guard up. Right. And it could be their tone, or it just hit a nerve that my tone got changed.
Right. As we all, too, work towards pleasing the other person, I think that's an important thing, too, where I've always felt like I shouldn't have to say it 1,000 times. Like, once I tell you something bothers me, it bothers me. Like, why are we not rectifying it? Because I'm somebody, if you tell me it bothers you, then I'm trying to make effort as much as I can. Sometimes, there's nothing you can, hey, I don't like it if you get a text by somebody, when you're, I can almost control that. I don't hear that, by the way, but I'm saying if I did, some of the stuff's outside of my control, I guess, so that you have to live with some of those things, but if I am in control of it, then I can do something about it. I'm definitely want to make my family happy and be at peace. That's what Paul says, right? Be at peace with everyone. Another tip I'll give you is this too. Don't exaggerate. Like Jesus said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. It's just that simple. And a lot of times our exaggerations will come, well, you always do that. You never. I'm telling you, you pitch one of those words at me, I'm going to hang right there. I'm not like, not always.
Not always.
Not always. Don't always do it. You always say, not always. And pretty soon now you're arguing about always. You're totally missing the point because you're hanging up on an exaggeration. You don't have to say that. You could just say, hey, it bothers me when you do it, whatever that may be. And then you're right on board with it. You're like, okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. And even Solomon, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger.
Right.
That, like you said, bringing out that exaggeration, that's going to take it off the topic, stir that person instead of just being upfront about the point that you're trying to get across.
Right.
And not changing it with exaggeration to boil the subject a little more and to even possibly belittling you.
I think too, in this day that we live in, you need to be calm because people are uptight. You know, you get out there, like I'm not going to be one who's inciting riots on the highway, aggravating people, or if somebody's hostile, I'm going to be calming, not joining in that because I think it's honestly gotten a bit more dangerous today. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't just be running your mouth and tailgating people and being hostile. Like I wouldn't do that. So I like that. It's a gentle answer turns away wrath. It's when you're dealing with people, if you're gentle, if you're calm, they're typically going to come back. If you're angry, you're sharp, you're excited, they're going to be excited and they're going to be sharp. I remember one time, buddy of mine, he's coaching his team and he's just up and down the sidelines, blah, 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 blah. And then he finally says, calm down. You guys need to calm down. I told him, I was there with him. I said, they'll calm down when you do. They're feeding into it. You know what I'm saying? I would give this to be pleasant. I really think that's just like, as a guy, I'm just looking for my wife to smile. I'm just looking to know we're okay and she's okay. Like, that's what I want to know. If you smile and you're warm and you're friendly, man, it's like good day. You know what I'm saying? But if you're constantly tense, constantly uptight, constantly, it's going to set.
People will move away from that.
Oh, yeah. It sets you on edge. And the guys, we don't like it. We'd rather go up on the rooftop, right, than be in a contentious situation. So, because we want the peace. I think guys, a lot of times, like, we want peace. So watch your tone, watch your body language and all that kind of stuff. Be engaging. Your spouse comes to joke around with you. Don't ignore them. Joke around back, laugh, smile. Don't just, they're coming and trying to be friendly and you just ignore them because then they're going to go be friendly with someone and you don't want to be friendly with them. You know what I'm saying?
What they're looking for, they want from you. But if you're not, they don't even mean to, but if they start to get attention somewhere else in those harsh words, we really have to watch because that harsh word can completely ruin a relationship.
Right. I agree.
Set off a bomb and especially if not, we're talking a lot about our spouse, but anybody out in public, you do a harsh word, they're not going to come talk to you. They're not going to say nice things about you out in public. Right. It's not worth it.
Calm and kind. I mean, those are the two things. Anyway, we hope you've gotten something out of our talk today about getting along with your spouse, especially, but really, I mean, anybody, these principles would apply to. But you have a great, awesome, and a blessed week.